Folks, welcome back. And gratefully, your attention to the front, because our next speaker is about to begin. And he is going to continue the theme that we began this morning, talking about issues and elements around leadership, around human capital, around development in a time of change. He is a Karachi-based expert on these matters. Paul Keijzer is the CEO of Engage Consulting and the principal consultant at RBL Group Middle East. His topic is managing talent in the exponential age. Paul, please join me on the stage. Folks, show your appreciation for Paul Keijzer. Thank you.
Let's make sure this works. Perfect, thank you. Shall I start? All good? I do feel that I'm not even the last one of the Gora parade that's been put out in front of you. Yeah? The good thing is that at least I can claim that I've lived here for 15 years. So from that perspective, my wife, well, a driver from Telenor that I've done a lot of work with, explained to me at some stage when I explained what I was doing. And I said, I'm from Holland and I lived here for 15 years. He said, you are a Desi Gora. And my wife called me a white, chunky Kit Kat. So I'm white from the outside and brown from the inside. So I'm going to take you on some of my examples will be worldwide. Some of my examples will be very, very Karachi or Sindh or Pakistani based. And I'm really looking forward to your feedback. I've just been asked to reduce a little bit of my time, so if I'm going to speak in my funny Dutch accent faster than you can comprehend, just hold up your hand and I'll do it slightly slower. What I'm going to talk about is all of the previous speakers talked about change. And I'm going to increase the level of make you uncomfortable a few notches. And then I'm going to bring that back in terms of what does that mean for you to manage that change with the talent that you have. Because one of the wonderful ideas that Roger mentioned, and it's something that nobody's ever mentioned to me before, but to bring millennials in the leadership team. I thought that was a wonderful idea, Roger. Thank you for that. And I think you'll find that I'm going to support his hypothesis there. So let me just take you through it. The first couple of slides are actually a summary of a program that I've recently gone through. I've gone through a program of the Singularity University that's all around how current technology is going to change and impact 1 billion people or more. And I've been exposed to 6 days of everything the latest of the latest of the latest in terms of what's happening in microbiology, what's happening in virtual reality, what's happening in energy, what's happening in digital manufacturing, etc., etc. And I'm trying to condense that into 3 or 4 slides. Because what we're seeing at the moment is that we've got 3 exponential forces, 3 exponential tornadoes hitting us at the same time. One is around technology, we've talked about that a lot. One is around environment, in terms of how that is accelerating degrading. And the third one is how, as a globe, we're more than ever interconnected. And the forces that are driving innovation are accelerating and compounding. What I actually feel is that as humans, we're very good into linear thinking. If I ask any of you, where would you end up? If from that side of the room you take 30 steps, where would you end up, sir? Probably right there, correct? If I ask you that same question, and I ask you, if you take 30 exponential steps, where would you end up? Outside of? Outside of this hole. Anybody has got a better guess? Where would you end up if you take 30 exponential steps? The sky? Yeah, that's rather infinite. I need slightly more characteristic. The moon. Oh, that's coming very close. Does anybody know what 2 to the power of 30 is? Top of your mind. It's about 1 billion, slightly more than 1 billion. So if you take 30 steps, you actually go 2.5 times to the moon and back, or 25 times around the world. And the problem is that we can't imagine that. As humans, we can imagine that we go from there to there, but we can't imagine if I go from, and in the beginning it all looks very small, from 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 32, 128 to 56, 512, 1024, 2048, etc. It looks relatively small. But then the numbers start kicking in, and then you see this whole spiral going like this. Yeah? And the person that came first with this whole element of exponential growth was a gentleman called Moore, and he was the founder of Intel. And most of you would have heard of Moore's Law, correct? Anybody's not heard of Moore's Law? Let me do this very quickly. He, in 1960, said that the power of a microprocessor, which was just invented around that time, the power of a microprocessor will basically double in its capacity in 2 years' time at half the cost. So every 2 years, we will double the power of a microprocessor at half the cost. And the interesting thing is, he's been right for the last 50 years. For the last 50 years, he's been right. And that means that that thing that you've now got in your hand is significantly more powerful than what you could buy in the late 1990s for millions and millions and millions of dollars. The problem, of course, is that, okay, we can look back and see that tremendous amount of progress, but again, exponential means that it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So just to give you a perspective, at the moment, you can buy a $1,000 laptop that makes a number of computations that's equal to the brain of a mouse. Yeah, so the number of computation that a $1,000 laptop makes is approximately equal to the brain of a mouse makes in its brain. In 6 years' time, on that exponential curve, by 2023, you can buy a laptop for $1,000 that has got the computational power of the human brain. If you take that exponential curve even further, by 2046, you will be able to buy for $1,000 the computational power of 7 billion brains together. That is shit scary. I don't know about you, but I get goosebumps if I think about that. Yeah? And the scientists call that singularity, where artificial intelligence and artificial superintelligence become so smart that we merge with machines. And you think that's not going to happen? I promise you it's already happening. Yeah? And as a result, we don't know what the future is going to hold like. But the latest is that scientists think that we will be able to hook up our brains to the cloud, and it will be a combination of artificial intelligence and our own intelligence. Then you ask yourself, okay, why? That sounds all very nice for Silicon Valley, but how does it affect me here in Pakistan? And I promise you it does. Because the speed of technology, and this Beetle, and just to give you a comparison, this Beetle, the CEO of Intel said that if this Beetle 1974 would have had the same improvements as microprocessors, this Beetle would be able to drive 450,000 miles an hour, ride 300,000 miles on the gallon, and would cost $4. Yeah? So those are the dimensions that you were talking about. Then subsequently you say, fine, all that is wonderful. What about us? We don't even have vending machines. Yeah? That was a wonderful question. We don't even acceptance of vending machines. But I promise you, we are very happy to embrace the Kareem service. Yeah? 12 months ago, we had thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of taxi drivers in black taxis, sponsored by the government. Now we've got a service that we've all embraced, and I'm the first one to use it because it provides a certain amount of independence. Artificial intelligence is now so smart that a computer is much better able to diagnose any skin disease that you might have than the best skin doctors in the world. You basically take a snap of your skin disease, upload it, and within seconds you get a diagnosis. So you can do that I can do that in Los Angeles, but I also can do that in Gujranwala. Yeah? I just need a smartphone. And I made one big mistake, because then I thought I was smart in this course. Yeah? So I said, but if you've got so many people with smartphones that can interact and be on the internet, half of the population in the country where I live can't read or write. Yeah, and that's a fact. And the simple thing that the lecturer did, he picked up his phone and he put on Google Assistant and started talking to him. You don't need to be able to read and write. Yeah? Anybody that can speak can access the internet and the knowledge that's associated with it. And of course, like Bob said, Roger said, the number of consumers that are associated with it. Yeah? So technology is going like this. At the same time, you will see that the environment is accelerating. And 2014 was the highest temperature ever. 2015 was the highest temperature ever. 2016 is again the highest temperature ever. Yeah? And everybody that says that human climate change is not human-made or is not happening, if you would say that to the people of the Maldives, whose island is going to disappear over the next couple of years, I don't think they would agree with you. Yeah? So the number of species is deteriorating. I think the impact, I saw yesterday an article, the impact of the natural disasters over the last 6 months in America costed the US about almost around $100 billion. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So environment is also happening. At the same time, you've got an acceleration in global connectivity. So this is the Facebook map of its users and its ability to connect people in 2012. This was it in 2015. And this is it just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah? Still, China is a very big black hole for Facebook, but don't underestimate that China is as wide, but using very different type of technology, services that we use. So also our ability to connect with each other is significantly enhancing. And that can be done for good, in solving any problem that we have, or it can be done for bad by creating all kinds of threats to the organization of super empowered individuals. So what I think you will see throughout the world is that technology is changing on this exponential curve. Our ability to adapt as humans is probably not as fast. Yeah? So in the past, we were able to understand technology, and technology was our slave. Yeah? We're now in a stage where actually technology has gone beyond how fast we can adapt. And as a result, you see this gap arriving between what people feel and in terms of how easy and comfortable they are with the opportunities that are there. And I think that is the reason that we see a lot of social change happening, with Americans wanting to go back to the 50s and building walls, with the UK wanting to go out of the European Union, and everybody going into the small tribes because that's more comfortable and you know what you get. So I think one of the elements is very much around this exponential change. And as leaders, I think we've got a huge responsibility, both from a government perspective, but specifically also from a private perspective, to help people to adapt quicker. And the word agility has been mentioned a number of times, and I think that will be the key word for some time to come. Okay. So what does it mean for the future of work? Yeah? We all know that our current organizations and the way that we're currently managing our businesses will no longer last. Yeah? And I promise you that you will see this shift already happening, and if it's not already happening, it will happen. You can decide as an organization whether you want to be at the forefront of this or whether you want to be at the back of the tidal wave. Yeah? And I do know that for a lot of us, this will become very uncomfortable because we love hierarchies. As Pakistanis, we love hierarchies. Yeah? We love, when we've arrived to that top job, we love to control the people that are below us because they might make mistakes. Yeah? We love to make sure that we plan, although experimentation, I think as a nation, we're actually quite good at. Yeah? We're very good in experimentation. Yeah? But the last one, in terms of transparency, apart from my driver who knows everything about me, I think otherwise we're very, transparency is not as good in business as it should be. Yeah? So I think we're going to struggle quite a bit as organizations to move from that past paradigm to that new paradigm. And then the question is, of course, so within that, how do you manage talent in that exponential age? Yeah? And before I give you 4 or 5 suggestions and solutions, let me just first of all explain to you what I mean with talent. Because with talent, I don't mean just the people that are on your payroll, because that's a very limited number of people that you can access. So I don't need just the people that are on your balance sheet. When I talk about talent, I'm also thinking about talent that you can get from partnerships, from joint ventures, or from investments that you do in other companies. Talent that you can borrow from outsourcing companies, from consultants, that you can borrow from other companies with swaps. I think about talent that you can utilize as freelancers. They come in for a couple of months and then they leave again. Or even talent that you can outsource or that you can open source from all the different platforms that are there. And I will come back to that in a second. So when I talk to you about talent, I don't want you to think about this person has to be on my payroll. Yeah? I recently set up a new company that's specifically focusing on digitizing talent processes. It's called the Talent Games. And it's just the 2 of us. But we've already achieved a crore of revenue by just the 2 of us, because we are just insourcing all the different talent from all different areas, and we're able to make a business by just a two people company. Yeah? And I think that is also in big companies. I really want you to revisit the way that you look at talent, because it's not just the people that you recruit and bind to your organization. You have to be much more flexible. The question, of course, then is, okay, if I have all the talent that is in some different way associated with us, but I don't have a hierarchical relation or a legal relationship with them, how do I get the best of them? How do I maximize their performance and that we actually jointly deliver something that's worth for them and worth for me? And I've got six suggestions for that. The first one is to be constantly on the lookout. And I'll cover each one of these 6 over time. So, the first one is to be constantly on the lookout. No line manager can delegate his talent search to HR. Yeah? The moment you do that, you're dead in the water. Yeah? So, on these conferences, the one thing that you have to do is to be lookout for other talent. I don't know how many people have you met today that are not part of your company. If it's less than 50%, you're not doing your job. Yeah? This is a moment where you're a talent scout, where you talk to people about what is their passion, what are you really good at, and you meet people that you don't know. Yeah? So you have to be a perpetual talent scout. And in my view, you see, I've dubbed it the skillpreneur. So it's an individual, and a question was being mentioned, that we are the 4th largest freelance provider, and that's specifically on freelancer. Pakistanis are the 4th largest provider of revenue generator on freelancer. And there's actually a Pakistani lady who is actually the biggest one. Yeah? So we've got tremendous amount of talent that are on these portals. You've got tremendous amount of talent that is living in Eastern Europe. You've got tremendous amount of talent that's living in Africa. Yeah? And through interconnectivity, you don't need to have a person sitting next to you anymore. So I really think that you should look at, for people that are really investing and being an entrepreneur of their own skills. And these guys, sometimes they want to be part of your company, but 3 months later, they want to build their skills in a non-for-profit organization like the World Bank. And 3 months thereafter, they want to build their skills in a startup. So would you say, well, because I don't have that kind of flexibility in my employment contracts, I'm not going to use that talent? That would be absolutely silly for you to do. Yeah? So be very clear that you constantly look out for people that can add value to your organization, no matter where they are or how you bind them to you. And of course, you can crowdsource anything under the sun. So whether it's financing, whether it's talent, whether it's ideas, whether it's tools, whether it's funding, these are just a number of sites that are already there a couple of years ago. So anything under the sun, you can crowdsource. Yeah? And I think there are these wonderful examples of companies by actually crowdsourcing ideas who have really, really taken on in terms of solving very difficult business problems. Because the issue is that in companies, we are very good as companies to incrementally innovate. But I promise you, we're absolutely horrible in innovating in a disruptive manner. And as a result, you won't find the disruptive ideas in the organization that's been, the people that are running your organization. You have to find it from somewhere else. The second one is, and I've been in HR throughout my life. Yeah? So I was HR director, at the age of 29, I was an HR director for Unilever in Holland. And I've been doing that for 18 years. And it is my advice to you to throw out the HR playbook. You know that big black thing that you've got on your desk? Some of you have it uploaded on the web, but most of you still have it in written form. Yeah? My first advice is throw that out. Why? Because most policies are written to make sure that people don't misuse some of the benefits or procedures that you have. The problem is that there's only about 5%, maybe 10%, or let me be very, very, that 10% of people would try to really hard to take advantage of the company. And all your policies are written to make sure that those 10% are being caught. As a result, the 90% of people that don't have a bad bone in their body are being put in a corset like this. You can't breathe. You have to get 5 signatures from your line manager to fly to Islamabad. 20,000 rupees. And you go, oh, why? Yeah? No, 4 people have to sign. Yeah? So all those 90% of your company have to act like this, whilst the 10% of the people that you want to capture are, of course, much smarter than you and still will take misadvantage of it. Yeah? So you actually have all these policies for nothing. Yeah? And a wonderful, wonderful thing that this is an American company, had this statement as their policy manual. Act and decide as if this is your own company. Yeah? Then you, of course, you say, Paul, you've been in Pakistan for 15 years. If I do this, my company is bankrupt tomorrow. And you're right. I've made many mistakes when I gave this freedom to some of my staff members that I was being misused, abused, and reused. Yeah? So there's a disqualifier for this. So the disclaimer is that you have to hire, reward, and tolerate only fully formed adults. Yeah? And as Pakistanis, we don't understand the concept that with freedom comes responsibility. Yeah? And with most of us, with freedom becomes, ha. Yeah? So you really have to make sure that you focus on values, that individuals are indeed the companies that are able to make mature decisions. Yeah? And that brings me to the third part. Because majority of companies is also treating their employees. How would you describe the relationship between a boss and an employee? Normally, one word that we really like in Pakistan, because we've got a love affair with the army, is that we call them benevolent dictators. Yeah? They decide what they do for us, but they're doing it in my good faith. Yeah? So most of the time I see line managers acting like a parent to the employee. I decide what's good for you. I think you should go to this training course. Here is the promotion. I decide when you have promotion. I decide where you have to travel. And as a result, I promise you that if you have any 18-year-olds, any of you have got 18-year-olds at home? A few, I hope. Yeah, a few, I guess. I promise you that won't work with 18-year-olds. And if you want that millennial to join your leadership team, that's not the way how he wants to be, or she wants to be treated. So you really have to create a relationship in which between the boss and the employee is what I call an adult-to-adult relationship. The only problem, of course, with adult-to-adult relationship, it requires not only the line manager to be an adult, but also the employee to be an adult. Yeah? And unfortunately, that's something that often we find very difficult as employees. Yeah? Because the biggest decision, I give you one example, the biggest decision of our lives, who to marry, is still for 90% of the time outsourced to your parents. Yeah? So taking responsibility for your own actions is something that doesn't come very natural to us. Yeah? But I think that's very important. The fourth element is that when I graduated in '88, I thought this is it. Yeah, I've got my master's in economics. I can rest of my educational laurels. Yeah, but nowadays, what I call the half-life of knowledge is really reducing rapidly. What do I mean with half-life? Anybody a chemist here, or a physicist? Yeah, so radioactive, the amount of radiation that disappears in 50% of the time. Yeah? I think the same applies to our knowledge. 50% of our knowledge is irrelevant over a certain period of time. The problem is that certain period of time is reducing very, very rapidly. Yeah? In my field, the half-life of knowledge is probably only 24 months now. So every 24 months, I have to relearn 50% of the stuff that I teach others. Okay? I don't know what the half-life in your profession is. But if I look at LinkedIn, and every year they display what are the top 10 skills that you get hired. This was published early 2017. Let me tell you if any of you know what any of these skills mean. Because I have a difficulty understanding even what it means, let alone that I've got a skill in it. Yeah? But I would be very surprised if more than 5% of this room here would have at least 3 skills that are on this sheet. And that means that you would be irrelevant in a global job market. Yeah? You would be irrelevant in a global job market. So you have to find a way, not only for yourself, but specifically for your teams, to constantly learn, And you can do that collectively. You can offer that by nano-learning. So there's all kinds of different ways. And learning, I don't mean come to a conference or going to a workshop. For me, that's actually the worst learning that you can get in terms of ROI. Yeah? With learning, I mean right on the job, specific short type of courses in which people constantly are being stretched, their imagination, and being told differently. The fifth one is around, if you want to really embrace, I think every individual has this element of wanting to make an impact. Yeah? And I love this quote because it certainly applies to young people, that for them it's about procuring a life that they enjoy, but specifically gives them a sense of meaning. And as a company, I think it's absolutely paramount for you to have a massive transformational person. First of all, it's massive, so it has to be audaciously and big. Secondly, it has to be transformative, because it is significant. And thirdly, it gives you a very clear why behind what you do, what you're doing. Why do you come out of bed in the morning? Yeah? And as individuals, everybody in the organization, from your security staff, all the way to the CEO, and all the way, not only the CEO, all the way to your shareholders, all the way to your customers, all the way to your suppliers, all the way to the people that the community that are around you, need to know why you're doing and what you're doing. Because only then can you build that community in which they want to be part of that. And again, you would say, well, who doesn't want to be part of these companies? Eh? That is ideas worth spreading. Organize the world's information. Bring radical breakthroughs or accelerate the transition to sustainable transformation. And you say, well, these are all wonderful American companies, and I got it. But what about here? What about Karachi? Yeah? Well, one client that I love to work with, not only for its people, but specifically for the purpose that they have, is Telenor Bank, which says, we want to empowering societies by banking the unbanked of the world. Yeah? And every time that Telenor Bank comes and knocks on my door, Paul, can you help us with this? My answer is yes. Why? Because I'm inspired by this purpose. If I can just add percentile to their purpose of banking the unbanked of the world, I think I feel very good about it. Yeah? So I think it's very much around having a sense of meaning as well. And last but not least, when you start talking about technology, the technology starts to crack up. So finally, it's about that we really have to use technology to engage talent. Whether it's around recruiting talent, whether it's around engaging talent, whether it's around getting ideas from your team, or as simple as making sure that you set goals and you hold people accountable. It will not work with paper and pen systems. It will probably not even work with ERP systems. It will probably not even work with mobile apps. You have to find a way to use concepts like gamification, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to really get the best out of it. And that's one of the things that my new tech startup is all focusing on, and we're focusing at the moment on selecting talent, which is all around creating a gamified recruitment platform. And this is all about how you can actually assess students by putting them into a gamified assessment center. Give me 2 minutes. And that brings me to, can I have 3 more minutes? Final 3 minutes, because I talked to you a lot about technology. I talked to you a lot about how that impacts talent. But I really want to share with you a 3-minute video of a German futurist who explains that in a much better narrative and with much nicer animations than I would ever have.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation. Well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities in one of the most transformational times in human history? Are you driving change, or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changers are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human-only traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future, because machines are very good at simulating, but not at being. Yes, robots and software will do some of our work, but this will allow us to focus on things that cannot be automated. To imagine change squared, you've got to start engaging more with what might be, not just with what is. Immerse yourself in the immediate future, 5 to 7 years out from today. We need to go beyond technology and data to reach human insights and wisdom. Technology represents the how of change, but humans represent the why. The future is about holistic business model. The opportunity is to be liquid, to learn just in time, not just in case, not single improvements, but complete transformations, not individual systems, but new ecosystems. Humanity is where true and lasting value is created. We will engage, relate, and buy things because of the experiences they provide, because of their transformative power. The future doesn't just happen, the future gets happened. The new way to work is to embrace technology, but not to become it. The future is in technology, yet the bigger future lies in transcending it. Let's live and lead from here.
What I like about this video, thank you. Well, it's not me, it's another gentleman that did that. I just picked it up. What I really like about the video is that it's about us transcending and using things. That automation can help us to focus on the things that we want to focus on and that we are better in. And therefore, I'm very positive about that future. And I think that future will arrive in Pakistan much faster than any of us will imagine. And the issue is, and I want to build on Roger's point, if you don't start doing that now yourself, others will do it for you. Thank you very much.
Paul, thank you very much indeed. Unfortunately, the one thing that technology, that talent, that skill, that genius will not solve is time, and the fact that it's finite and linear and we can't affect it. We have no time, unfortunately, to engage Paul in conversation, which I would love to do. But the good news is he's actually based in Karachi. You saw his details on the screen there. You may contact this guy at any time that you like, and maybe even at lunchtime.
Indeed. Okay.
Just as a token of our appreciation, let me invite Arshad Khan back onto the stage, please, the founding president of Ufone, to make a presentation of our gratitude to Paul, and we will move on. But please, if you could just put Paul's contact details back on the screen as well, for anyone who wants to make contact with him. Do we still have that?
Thank you. Zeker? All right, Shukriya. Okay, thank you, guys.
There we go. Paul Keijzer, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. So it's been a mind-blowing morning, right? I mean, how much inspiration and ideation has been going on in the past 2 or 3 hours to really get you thinking about how this whole disruption thing really works. It's not just about having a smarter handphone, it's about a whole universe of ideas. So having done that, we're going to give you a break from that for a second.